My name is Billy Kyle, and this is Inner Revolution Astrology. With great respect and appreciation for the ancient fires, let us take a look at the unscripted, non-finite future possibilities, and together rediscover the Promethean heart of the solar fires and the great potential which stands with and within each of us as we walk the revelatory path of stars.
All right, so let's think a little bit about the month of December. An image that comes to mind is a mountain in the distance. And a lot of times when we think about a mountain in the distance, we're like, that's so beautiful, that's so epic. You know, it's like I want to live in a home where I look out the window and I see this big, beautiful mountain. And then the difference of perspective is when we're on the mountain itself. So I'd say there's definitely a difference between those two perspectives. Gazing upon the mountain, the beautiful, epic mountain, and being on the mountain. In a lot of ways, being in the month of, starting the month of December, in the sign of Sagittarius with the Sagittarius new moon, that's kind of the energy. We're looking at the mountain, and ahead lies the mountain, Capricorn. And Sagittarius is the 9th sign of the zodiac, leading up to the 10th, which is Capricorn. So it's as if we're passing through the 9th gate, and that's a powerful and intense time leading to Capricorn, which comes up as the next sign next month. Well, later at the end of this month. So there's a difference there, and it makes me think of the difference between youth and old age, or domestication and the wild. It's kind of like the difference between the dog and the wolf, and what is the beautiful medium in between. How do we retain, the part of us that is the wild nature, and how do we balance it out with the human aspect of reason and values? So with that, some of the aspects going on right now, we have the Sagittarius new moon, which will culminate as the Gemini full moon. And then we're in the Mayan 13-day period of the snake right now. And after 13 days of that, we will begin the Mayan 13-day period of knife, flint, or mirror. And so let's think really quick about the rulers of Sagittarius. So the exoteric ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. A lot of us are familiar with that. The esoteric ruler of Sagittarius is the Earth itself. And then the hierarchical ruler of Sagittarius is Mars. So that's kind of an interesting path. We go from Jupiter to Earth to Mars. We want to think about those combinations as we get into this report.
Some Sagittarius elements are aim, trajectory, distance and expansion, and grounding. The Earth is the mother matrix, and our bodies are just extensions of the Earth, born from and returning to the Earth. Sagittarius, as a function of the ego in one aspect, expands from source and extends outward. The symbolic return is that it then assimilates and becomes its target. Let us compare the new moon time period to that of a womb. What intentions will we consciously cultivate during this time?
So yes, this new moon, any new moon phase period is a period, it's like a time of setting intentions. It's a time of silence, quiet, planting seeds, ones that will eventually germinate and blossom. So right now is a great time to be setting intentions for what you want to develop and bring forth. I think of the Nietzsche quote used in the Conan the Barbarian movie, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." And I think that another way of saying that is that which does not kill us brings us closer or more within the domain of the soul, or under the guidance of the soul. So we set our intentions. There's the process of failure and success involved, and whatever that means to you. And then kind of rising above that, moving beyond that, transcending the idea of failure and success, and realizing that failure in itself is success. So many failures equal a success, and a success in a way is death. A success is an ultimate failure, meaning you've accomplished something, it's done, it's put aside, it's time to go to the next, the next goal. It's like you've gone to the peak, and now it's time to go to the next peak. It's you have to go through the valley experience to get to the peak. So it's kind of the idea of continuing forward despite any feelings or circumstances that may seem like major setbacks or roadblocks, and finding interesting and unique and innovative ways to work with those, get around those, and transcend them as well. And in the process of this, a lot of times we can think about learning through pain, destruction, and failure versus bliss, fun, enjoyment, harmony. And I think both definitely have their place in learning. You can look at the whole history of how people are taught, different ways people are taught. And it's the whole idea of teacher, student, government, society, and so on. Rules, regulations, guidelines. And it always comes back to Sagittarius with philosophy is my way versus your way, our way versus their way, us and them. And that's a huge topic in itself, and it always boils down to, it's like the fractal is like, is my way the right way versus your way? Is their way the right way versus the other person's way? And I think it's the idea that we have to learn to hold our way and be true to it, yet not criticize or condemn other people's way just because they're different. That's why we have different cultures, different languages, different people. And so it's that balancing process of, everybody's way is just a different perspective that leads to an ultimate greater truth. Because Sagittarius has to do with truth, the meaning of truth, personal truth, collective truth. And so each of us carries a piece of the truth, but it's not the ultimate truth. And so we want to hold that perspective with this energy, is that we want to bring our truth together with all other truths. We want to synthesize these so that we can at least attempt, though it may be impossible, to reach the ultimate truth, the impersonal truth versus personal. Going through some of the aspects at this time for December, starting with the Sagittarius new moon. The Sagittarius new moon makes a square to Saturn and loosely opposes Jupiter. So this is, we would say, mutable cross energy. This is, it's morphable energy, metamorphosis, changeable. It is the shape shifter kind of energy. Can be a little bit of trickster energy, but then again, when you're dealing with the topics of truth, what is truth, who is right, there is an element of trickster energy that kind of goes with that. So, I see this as desires challenged by the need for upgrades and the necessity for new perspectives, while the stakes go up, because we're dealing with truth, the hunt for truth, the process of philosophy, fun, games, kind of enjoying life, yet we also deal at the same time with the harsh reality, the demands that life makes of us, the essentials, food, shelter, medicine, connection. And so there's a kind of a fine balance between that. And the intensity goes up because the stakes go up this month in a very quiet way behind the scenes. So it's like things seem quiet on the surface, yet the intensity is really amplifying under the surface. Some other aspects we have: the Sagittarius new moon quinque undicile on the planet Uranus, and that's a 5/11th aspect, which means it's not quite an opposition, it's just a little bit less than an opposition. So there's a relationship aspect, but it's just slightly out of focus. And I kind of see this as the quinque undicile 5/11th aspect is a very intense, die-hard aspect. Like, that's where we come into the idea of Sagittarius being the one-pointed disciple or the one-pointed seeker, meaning that you have 1,000% focus on one thing, be it physically, intentionally, emotionally, spiritually, and so on, and that no distractions come in the way of that. Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing, is that when you attempt to make that one-pointed focus, life will bring you so many distractions, so many ways for you to be distracted. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta, do the laundry. Oh, you gotta pick up your kid. Oh, I'm thinking about the game next week. Oh, I'm thinking about band practice, and so on. Or somebody calls you right at that moment. It's kind of the funny thing about how that works, but it's the idea of having that one-pointed focus. I think if you think about whatever you have in your life that stays with you, that stayed with you from the beginning, and it's going to stay with you all the way to the end, whatever that is, you have a connection to something that you love, or a passion, or you're dedicated to something, and that's no matter what challenges come along, what events come to pass, that's something that will never leave your interest or be taken away from you. And with the planets Uranus involved, I'm thinking of the idea of flip the script, finding innovative, unusual, weird ways of bringing what you want forward. Because with Uranus, and when you think about the whole idea of quantum physics, it's like A never leads to B. There's no straight line in nature where A leads to B. It's like you start with A, and then all of a sudden you're teleported to Q, and then you go to like L, and then you're back to B. So unusual geometrical or nonsensical ways of kind of like ending from one place back to the beginning. So it's definitely like a non-linear kind of thing with that, and seeking unusual or strange ways or creative ways to connect the dots. Connecting the dots is not always linear in this kind of way of thinking. Another aspect at the time of the new moon, and I bring these up because I know the new moon already happened, but the energy carries forth and it builds all the way up until the new moon. So one other aspect that I wrote down was the Sagittarius new moon making a bi-undicile to the south node. And so with this whole creative process, it's finding, what do we let go of? What do you release in order to make those steps forward? Sometimes that can be physical, so that can be cleaning out the house, cleaning out the bathroom, cleaning up the yard. Sometimes it can be relational. Get rid of the roommate, dump the boyfriend, dump the girlfriend, get the divorce. Sometimes it can be emotional, the recognition of emotions. What emotions do you need to become more aware of and let go of? What emotions do you need to sit down with and be like, you know what, I was just way too pissed off this week and it's making me feel like shit. Or I am way too paranoid today about this one thing and it's distracting me and I'm not able to keep my one pointed focus towards something. And then of course it can be mentally. What thoughts can we be more discriminative about, weed out and let go of? And then it can, so many different levels. It could be spiritual. Maybe you need to find a new direction, path, or different things that you can do spiritually. So one more aspect we can think of, and it's the sort of the vision or the analogy of the Sagittarian archer. It's the centaur shooting the bow. And it's kind of the idea of shooting that arrow, and when it hits its target, it's as if we've released ourselves from the past and become that new goal. It's like you have a new desire, a new goal. And in the story about Heracles, in the sign of Sagittarius, it's noted that the arrows that were given to him by the gods were actually arrows of light. And those arrows of light actually represent thought and thought form. And so part of that is, where do we direct our thoughts? And not just our thoughts, how do we restrain speech? How do we choose to know when to say something and when not to? When to restrain or hold back the vocalization of thoughts, because thought is very intimately connected to vocalization and speech. And it's the idea that when that arrow is drawn back and released, once it hits its target, it's as if you become that new target. The target is the goal. It's like you set your intention on a goal, you release the arrow, and many times you'll miss, many times you'll fail in that process. And whether you choose to continue to try and try again, once you succeed, it's as if you become that target. You kind of become that next step.
Desires fuel our evolutionary path. The desire to have, to know, to be, and to evolve. When we achieve what we aim for, it returns to us in a sense, and we own it. We own the experience and the knowledge. Not own in a possessive sense, which is the way the personality would view it. More like we have earned our experience by being in the process itself. We become the bullseye that we aim for and hit, in a sense. It is important to note there is always a difference between the aims of the personality and that of the soul. On a higher level, there are differences between the aims of the soul and the spirit. Let us all be reminded that no matter how far you get or how much you've learned, earned, or achieved, to not forget your origins. Do not forget the soil from which you rose. Do not forget where your story began and when you first put that arrow to the bowstring and drew it back. Don't forget your origins or your stories. To be able to shoot from a distance and far out of range of adversaries, the bow and arrow was once the peak weaponry technology. In many ways, television and the internet are now extensions of the bow and arrow technology. To aim and deliver a message with the arrow, that delivery can result in death, and with modern communications technology, it can result in the programming or influencing of the mind. Every commercial has a goal. Every politician sells a promise. News media attempts to author the collective narrative. Every film aims to deliver a provocative story. There is a major battle for your attention at every turn of the corner, at every stoplight, on every website. Thoughts are forms, and thought forms can be liberating or misdirecting.
So, being that everywhere is a battle for our attention, we want to think about this Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius and the new moon in Sagittarius and a lot of the themes that we've been talking about as kind of a way to talk about programs. We've seen the movie The Matrix. We know the ideas behind computers and programming. And when you connect that with thinking, thoughts, and concepts, it's the idea that we're all within a program. It's that, think of it as society, think of it as your school, think of it as your peers. There's a lot to it, and we're all running programs. Programs within programs within programs. Lots of programs. And you ever heard of the saying, maybe a teacher, maybe a parent, maybe somebody told you once, it's like, get with the program. The idea of get with it, get with what we're thinking, get with the program that we're doing, or get out. And it's the whole idea of uniformity. That's why we see in schools, in the military, in sports, it's the uniformity, the uniform. Wearing the uniform, being of one form, of one thought, one structure. And so there's a lot of pressure for people to break that form, break out of that form. Maybe it's religious. The pressure and the guilt to break out of, move away from a particular form, a particular idea, a uniformity. And instead of going towards uniformity, we want to go towards unity, more inclusive directions of bringing thought forms together. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And with that being said, we also want to talk a little bit about, we have, and we'll talk about it again and some more, but what we refer to as mental and astral hygiene. It's like mental floss, astral hygiene, being more aware of what you speak, when you speak it, being more aware of your thoughts. And that's tricky territory, because when you start becoming aware, you become aware of things that maybe aren't so good. You become aware of patterns. And then how you deal with that can be tricky as well. So it's kind of a process of opening the door, seeing what's behind it, or looking in the attic, looking in the dungeon, what programs have been stored away on automatic, default mode, hidden away. This brings up the whole concept, the idea of the butterfly, which is intimately related to the sign of Sagittarius. And it's the whole idea of when we read the story of Heracles and defeating the birds in the marsh. He had to find a way to get them out of the marsh. They were hidden in the dark, boggy areas of the marsh, kind of hidden away out of sight in darkness. And that's kind of like what I was just talking about, is that we have to bring these programs, these negative thoughts or old patterns that are not working for you or working against you, out of the darkness and into the light, where you can actually see them, where you can actually deal with them. As long as they're buried away in that Plutonian dungeon, you're not going to be able to work with them. You have to bring them into the light of consciousness. And it's interesting to note that the caterpillar, before it even goes into the stage of metamorphosis, goes through 5 stages. It's basically 5 deaths, 5 rebirths, 5 reincarnations. Then it finally goes into the stage of metamorphosis in the cocoon, the chrysalis. And that is the stage of silence. That's the stage of mystery and silence and changeability. And then, it's the idea that the caterpillar can't think like the butterfly and vice versa. And once it transforms, it is something completely and so different than what it was before that there's no comparison. So it's kind of the idea that the new program is completely different than the old program. In fact, the old program dies to the new program. That's another way of saying, the seed dies unto itself. And so you want to think about this going through this month, through the ninth gate of Sagittarius, leading up to the mountain of Capricorn. Super potent creative time, depending on how you walk through it. Let's check out some charts.
We have Neptune as the peak, Mars, Mercury, Pluto, and Uranus. Significant dates occurred on November 1st, 11th, 20th, and 25th. Future dates with this ongoing energy are April 16th, after Venus stations direct with Mars at 29 degrees Cancer and traveling into Leo. Then on April 26th, when Mercury leaves its shadow and Mars makes its final and third opposition to Pluto. The opposition being like a full moon in its way of expression. And this is really important because it means that Mars is free of Pluto's dominating and controlling nature. A full moon is a positive time when the moon is out of the way and not in between the sun and the earth, allowing the full light of the sun to flow inward to the earth. Then, during July 21st to 25th, 2025, during the Mayan 13-day period of death and the first day of the Mayan 13-day period of rain. And then we also have this aspect and energy again on August 9th, where Uranus becomes the point of the pyramid.
So again, dealing with the snake and eagle axis associated with Scorpio and Sagittarius. Sagittarius, again, is associated with the butterfly or the eagle. So it's the idea of that which is close to the earth, that which crawls, versus that which is in the skies, that which flies. So you want to think about that, and the 13-day period of snake bringing us to an area where we want to engage with conflict intentionally, yet from a distance, detached, impersonally. Getting involved instead of turning away, getting directly involved instead of denial. The two different aspects, you have Sagittarius and Scorpio, Scorpio and Sagittarius, lower mind, higher mind, the dealing with illusion, and then the harnessing of our abilities to focus them in a more one-pointed fashion. And so this is a period of time of discovery of self. Outwardly, it may be secrets revealed, secrets coming to light personally, diving deeper into those depths, taking a good look at what needs to transform, what do you need to really work on to get to the next step. And part of that process is confronting conflict, confronting power, bringing light into the darkness. How do you work with confrontations with others? And it's the idea of getting into it, getting directly into it in a way, engaging with it indirectly or directly, instead of shying away, involving yourself in different circumstances that allow you to gain more perspective, gain more power. And some of the snake energy that can be associated with this 13-day period is like the idea of psyching somebody out, putting on a good front. So it's definitely a time of high potent creativity, and let's take a look at some charts really quick that kind of highlight that.
In this chart for December, we have a mystic rectangle. Mercury will come along and join as it's moving retrograde and help create a pyramid aspect. Pluto in Aquarius, South Node in Libra, Neptune and the North Node in Aries and Pisces, and Mars retrograde in Leo, making its way back into the sign of Cancer. The energy of this mystic rectangle seeks to express through the entire month of December and even into January, as well as the Mars retrograde period that is happening. So we have December 8th to 10th, Mercury retrograde makes the point of a pyramid with this mystic rectangle. Then again, after going direct, becomes the point again from December 19th to 21st. Around January 20th, Mercury begins to feed into the circuit as Mars slowly makes its way out of this energy pattern. But then Mars slowly returns around March 31st to about April 20th, re-triggering themes we have already been introduced to, but issues that are still deeply being revealed. A time to expect going to the next plateau. Then, later in the summer around August 9th until about August 20th, the circuit comes back into play, but this time it adopts a new flavor of intensity as it now involves Pluto, Mercury retrograde, Mars, Neptune, and Uranus. Uranus now as the main point of this pyramid aspect. In this particular configuration, it's also a mystic rectangle with Pluto in Aquarius, Mars in Cancer, Neptune and Saturn exactly conjunct in Aries, and Mercury retrograde in the sign of Cancer. This is extremely potent. All of the cardinal cross energy with Uranus as the point of the pyramid. The current Mayan 13-day period that we're in is the Mayan 13-day period of Snake, which goes from December 3rd to December 15th. This period signifies a concentration of knowledge and power and the gaining of consciousness through integration and performance. This 13-day period has to do with mysticism, initiation, renewal, charisma, the power of movement, the waveform, undulation, kundalini energy, meditation, awakening to the non-personal, rising consciousness, or a fall to the lower mind, the power of magnetism, drama, sex, and desire. There is a danger here for fanaticism or extremism.
To one who is harmless, all enmity ceases. That is the process, the goal to attain harmlessness in all that one does and all that one is. And that's deeply connected to love. That's the path of love. With some of these aspects right now, Mercury conjunct the Sun, that's opposite Jupiter and square Uranus. It's like, where do you want to expand? Where do you want to go? And then what do you need to let go of? What's that process? It's give and take. Like, what are you letting go of right now to move to the next step? It's kind of that fine tuning, give and take. You can't have it all. So it's kind of a trade. Let's trade this for this. And that can be a physical thing on the physical plane. That can be emotionally. Let's trade out one emotion for the other. Maybe one isn't working for you so well. Spiritually, we talked about this earlier. What's up, buddy? Hi. You are a cute pup. Hi. 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 What's his name? Astro. Nice. Good to meet you, buddy. All right. Yeah. No, it's he's doing what he's doing. Yeah. That's a good sign, man. Just had a dog named Astro come up and take a piss on the rock right behind me as I'm making this video. So I'm going to go ahead and take that as a great omen, a great sign. I'm kind of on the right track. We're talking about the Mars retrograde, and it's with the Mars retrograde, it's like we always want to think about redoing, reacting. It's like that kind of going back, going over something, reviewing our actions. And this Mars retrograde starting in Leo and going backwards into the sign of Cancer. It's already spent a lot of time in Cancer, and now it's going to go back into Cancer, and that's going to be squaring the Mars retrograde, a couple of them that we had back in 2020. Or I'm sorry, a couple back from this one, back in 2020. So this Mars retrograde is square to the Mars retrograde that occurred in 2020, which was a very intense Mars retrograde. So this is more cardinal energy that we're dealing with, but instead of Aries and fire, we're dealing with Cancer and water. It's kind of that the womb energy. It's very collective, very psychic energy. Aries is very psychic as well. So it's that cardinal initiating energy. And we'll talk more about that because we still have, we're going to have the next couple months to talk about that Mars retrograde. So we'll go really into depth with that one. But I do want to highlight that this retrograde is a midway point in a partition cycle that runs from 2022 to 2027. So we're in a cycle right now that goes from 2022 to 2027. And it has a parallel with the time periods of 1975 to 1980, and previous to that, 1943 to 1948. So the period that we're in right now with this Mars retrograde cycle it parallels with the years 1977 to 78, as well as 1945 to 46. And so it's interesting to think, if we, study some events in history, what is going on right now and what may be going on soon compared to, what happened back in 1977, 78, and 1945 to 1946. And we're going to have Venus moving into the sign Aquarius, conjuncting Pluto. Pluto just went into Aquarius for like the next 20 years. Oh, and also one of the big ones is Neptune stations direct this month at 27 degrees Pisces. And the cool and powerful thing about that is that this is the last time that Neptune will station direct retrograde, basically, before it actually goes into Aries. And I think that's like later in 2025, like April. But basically, it's not going to be hanging out in Pisces too much after this. It's going to be moving into Aries, and that's like a huge deal. Big changes coming up with art, music, the film industry, Hollywood, all that stuff. Big changes coming with that, with Neptune into Aries.
There is the body, the poison, and that which is consumed. The snake moves gracefully. One part of the body helps the snake move by the shape or posture it assumes, and then relaxes while another assumes the momentum, just like a sine wave alternating from peak to valley or right to left. The snake's body is a symbolic conduit and carrier of information, interpreted as physical, metaphysical, and cosmic depending on the viewpoint. Associated with sex, Kundalini energy, also called serpent power and fundamental life force energy, is said to be an energy that sleeps and is coiled inwardly 3.5 times around the Muladhara root chakra. Misdirection or misunderstanding of this energy can lead to imbalances in the threefold body. When viewed from the cosmic perspective, we may see the snake as a symbol for great imperceptible waves which signal epic evolutionary cycles, as detected by many ancient cultures such as the Maya. Cycles of time in the wave format, undulating periods of growth and rest, day and night, war and peace, individuation and assimilation, invention and imitation, genius and imaginativeness. We can see how rivers wind like snakes through the land, commanding massive power to push forth and cut through the land. Yet that power is contained within the land itself. We may think of how blood, one of the most powerful fluids on earth, snakes its way through the veins, arteries, and capillaries of the body. In this sense, there is a connection to Aquarius. Aquarius being the circulatory system, which contains the blood, or the waters of life. If you look at the symbol for Aquarius, you can see that one of its symbolic meanings is that of two waves, which represents the waves of the water element. Just the symbolism as waves alone is very powerful, even while keeping in mind that Aquarius is an air sign. Let us keep in mind that Jupiter, the planet of expansion, excess, and more, is the esoteric ruler of Aquarius. From above, waves of water are most commonly created when wind and air create friction with the water. From below, it can be seismic activity. In the symbol, these two waves are synchronized sawtooth or sine waves with space between each of them. When one rises, so does the other at the same time. When one falls, the other does so at the same time. I see these two sine waves as also being representative of snakes. In this sense, there is a correlation to the structure of DNA. Snake energy initiates. Initiation comes with tests of power and knowledge. Tests of discovering harmony through conflict, which is connected to the fourth ray as the midpoint of the 7 divine rays, which are themselves waves of light. An early version of Zeus, Zeus Malikios, was worshipped in Greece as a serpent, so it's interesting to see the connection between Jupiter as the esoteric ruler of Aquarius, snakes or serpents, and then the symbol for Aquarius, which is the 2 sine waves or sawtooth waves. The symbolism here is again the duality of the serpent, the negative serpent which has to be conquered by the hero, and upon being conquered, that same serpent empowers the hero. My name is Billy Kyle. I am a musician, writer, philosopher, and practical mystic. I am an astrologer practicing Western, esoteric, Mayan, and evolutionary astrology, while also pioneering new methods and synthesis. If you would like to support my work and contributions, please do so through my Inner Revolution Patreon page. Thank you donations via the Buy Me a Coffee link are also highly appreciated. I am available for various types of astrological chart readings and can be contacted through email, Patreon, and Instagram. I encourage you to leave comments with your own insight as well as feedback about my video content, as we are all one community gathered together in the middle of this great flowing river of life, beautifully diverse and connected beyond reason. Liking this video, subscribing to my Inner Revolution Astrology channel, and clicking on the bell icon so that you can receive notifications of future videos will greatly help and are much appreciated. Thank you, and at your highest, may you be.